Hey, everybody, welcome to Tech Talk. My name is Eric, and I have with me Telvi. We have a few of our co-panelists and hosts are missing today. We have Nelson is out of here, and Lofar is also out of here, and then Tyler is also out of here. But today we are here with another new topic on Tech Talk. If you haven't been here before, Tech Talk is a show that we try to actually advocate or maybe make some recommendation on how we think technology can actually improve our country, Liberia, on how we interact with the rest of the world, or how we do business, either in a private sector or in the government environment as well. So Tech Talk, we just unveiling, making good recommendation, pinpointing those areas that we can improve, and see how technology can help us overcome most of these, so to speak, minor issue that we can improve on as a country and as a people or business environment. So before we go ahead today with our new topic, I love to go back to our show, our previous show, a little to give you an idea on what we have talked about before in the past, as far as our shows go. If you have time, go back on our page, across Africa page, and then watch our videos. It'll give you an idea what we're talking about. Well, for the initial stage of our show, we introduce what we call CIA. If we can bring my screen share in there, we have it, or Toby. So we said in the environment of technology, we have few things that we are concerned about. That is the confidentiality of our data, and the integrity of our data, and the availability of our data. What do I mean? Confidentiality. That means we just want people who's supposed to know what we are talking about know, nobody else. And see, the integrity aspect of it is, we don't want anybody to modify anything that they have no business modifying. And availability, we also want to make sure that we have we have our data when we need it. So that's the availability aspect of that. And we also talk about the IAAA and the N. This, we said, in order for you to achieve the CIA, we have to implement this thing, the identification, authorization, authentication, accountability, and non-repudiation. We're not going to go into detail on this right now. We already spoke about them in our previous shows, but I just brought it out to show you the trench of our ideas, of what we'll be speaking about today. Our topic on audit, it falls on the accountability aspect of the IAAA that you are seeing on the screen here. So we are going to go deep into auditing. It falls on accountability. As I said, we'll tell you what auditing is. We're going to tell you how the process goes, and so many things. So not to waste your time, we are going to go over to Telvi, and you can tell us more.
Sure. Like Iris said, we're going to talk about auditing, special emphasis on IT audit. We're going to talk about what audit is, the audit process. We're going to talk about, do a case study. Well, not really a case study, but just talk about what's trending. Maybe visit maybe one or two of the audits that's going on in Liberia. And much more. So we ask you to share the show, invite someone, and type of your questions. If you have questions, comments, pull your questions, and then when it's time for people to call, please call us. We want your feedback. So we the first thing we'll open with, what is audit? The word is an industry word, buzzword. We've been hearing it all around, especially with the change of government in Liberia. We heard it before, but even now with the new change. So we just want to talk about what is audit. Eric, I'll let you go first, and then I can add to that.
Yeah. So I think the best way to talk about what audit is, I think I'll just begin to what audit isn't. Auditing is quite it just of is different from an investigation. We are not investigating anything. So we have a predefined thing that we know that should exist. But you want to go back to those things and make sure that they are still there, and then so we can make changes to. I mean, so we can make an adjustment to that. So auditing definitely is just you know going through our system, going through what what we should have as an organization or as a business to actually make sure that those things actually they still existing, and they are actually the way we think they should be. So for example, we can say we should have everybody showing to work at 10 o'clock a.m. every day. And maybe 3 months down the line, we want to make sure and go back to the record and make sure that people are actually showing up at least 3 times, I mean, 10 o'clock every day, to make sure that the requirements are met. So that's what actually auditing is. So it's not like a fact-finding mission. We're not going to investigate and say who's doing what, who's not doing what. In this case, we know what we expect, in the auditing process. We know what we're looking for. Investigation, we don't know what we're looking for. We want to say if there's a wrongdoing. So in a nutshell, we just go into through our system or through our business or through our organization to make sure that we are actually following those recommendations or those standards that we say we're going to follow. So that's my overview of the auditing process.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Yeah, like you said, there's certain fundamental things that have to be done in audit. So whether your stakeholders want to know that you have enough controls in the system, that they can trust the systems that you have. Want to make sure that they make sure that they're getting value for money. And so, if you look at from an investment standpoint, that the systems are secure around whatever they're investing in. You also have, because audit can be, like we talk about, internal or external. So like Eric said, what is expected? You have regulations, you have policies and procedures that you should have in place. You should have controls in place. So when you audit, you want to make sure that you have adequate controls, and that whatever systems you have can be relied on. Your data is accurate, is complete, and everything's not perfect, but it should be consistent. For the most part. So on a high level, that's what audit is all about. So we have to validate that from time to time. We'll talk more how you audit, when you audit, but on a high level, that's just what audit is all about. So the next thing we're going to talk about, why is audit conducted? But we already talked about it. Why is audit conducted? Your stakeholders want to know. Your internal processes want to make sure that you're not susceptible to breach, that your network is not open out there, that any talk they can have can just jump in and just, you're not open to vulnerabilities like that. There's no perfect system, but you're not open like that you have enough controls in place. You also want to make sure that you're compliant with state laws, federal laws, even your own policies and procedures, things like that. So that's some of the reasons we conduct audits, for compliance purposes. Eric, feel free to jump in. Don't let me go talk too much.
Yeah, I mean, other thing why we do audit is it's not a matter. In most cases, it's not a matter of choice. It's not like, okay, we feel happy today, so let's go audit. No, we don't have anything to do today, so let's go and audit. In most cases, there are very important reasons why people have to do audit. One is you want to make sure that the business interest or the organization interest is always maintained. So for example, if your business is running, you want to make sure that everything that make that business successful still intact, so that nothing changes. So you have to do a periodic, overview of your processes and procedures, for that business, so you make sure that everything is intact. Secondly, I think, let me see here. Secondly, it as I said, it's not by choice. We audit based on regulations or laws by the country or by the state that you are in. We audit based on policy, the company policy. I think we'll talk more about that as we go. But so it's not like a thing that you have to do when you want to do it. But those are required, required steps that we have to take to make sure that, our business or our government is functioning correctly the way we want it to be. So that's why we do audit, and is to help look at those areas to make improvement or recommendation. Um, in most cases, there can be laws, there can be penalties for not doing audits, but that we're going to talk about as we go down the line.
Yeah, just to add to that, another thing we audit for to make sure there's no fraud, waste, and abuse going on, for no improprieties going in the space. And sometimes people will do financial audits and things like that, and just to make sure there's none of those are happening, and you have enough safeguards in place. So we'll go to the next one. The next thing there, people always ask, the buzzword about audit, but how often should we audit? And the short end of the question is, answer is, it varies. It varies. Some people, depending on what's going on, if it's regulatory, sometimes you have to do it annually. Sometimes you have to do it every 6 months. Sometimes you got to, some things, some systems, you got to audit every 3 years, 1 year. It just depends on management needs, the risk, and other variable, but more so the organization, just the policy and the objective and what they're trying to accomplish. Eric, you can chime in.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I have a slide that we can just put on the screen. Let me just talk more about
Sure.
that. Why we audit? So
This one?
yeah, that should be good enough. So now, if you can see on the screen there, as I said, it's not about choice in most cases. I mean, internally, if you do an internal audit, maybe it's just about the business or the company choice to do an audit to see how they can improve their system. But in most cases, audits are based on regulations. So like in the US, they have regulatory bodies that will come to make sure that every organization function the way they're supposed to, so that if you go out of regulation or out of compliance, the government or that body will come to investigate. And if you continue to do that, maybe you can be penalized for that. But in most cases, if for compliance purposes, because the government wants to know, like in the case of the US, for example, hip hop that deal with medical information, they want to make sure that every patient or every medical record is kept confidential. So and there are a framework, or there are ways that they want these things to be kept. So every company that handles medical data will have to follow that particular regulatory outline. So now the government will come and audit you at least based on how many times they want a year or so, just to make sure if you have something missing in your process, they will identify that and say, okay, go and fix it. But if it becomes a continuing process, then of course we have an issue. And also based on policy, we have it based on what transparency, and based on some, as I said, law or standards. So these are the reason why you will audit, because you want to be compliant with these things. Non-compliance with any of these things may have a detrimental, I would say, a business consequence. Maybe be, for example, like GDPR, that the British government, it says that every country that does business with any European citizen, whether in Europe or out of Europe, you have to comply with GDPR. So it's a requirement. So in the US we follow that. In the UK they follow that. Australia, anywhere or that you're doing business with, or any European customer data, you have to follow GDPR. So then every country, every business or every company that doing that such a business will have to follow that process. So you have to do an audit to make sure that you are actually compliant. So it's not about, if you want to do that. So these are the reason why we will have to audit, because it's a requirement either from the regulatory body or by law, or it's a standards, or just internal audit to make sure that we are operating correctly as a business.
Yeah, perfectly said. And just to add some, life stories to that, Eric. I mean, you said it all, internally or externally. I mean, for most people who know, I've been audited for a long time before I transitioned to cybersecurity. But so I used to do government auditing for a long time, actually most of my career. And so we will audit people that will take, that have any contract with government, whatever, Medicaid, Medicare, whatever it is, audit them, or funding, whatever state or federal funding. So things like that, how you do audit. And I'm glad you mentioned about internally what the companies would do. So companies will have annual audit plan. So they got certain, based on their risk assessment and what's trending in the space, in the tech space or whatever space or business space. They use all of that information to come up with the annual audit plan. And based on that annual audit plan, could be 10, 15%, just based on the business needs. And then they'll go and audit. And so they'll do all these audits and really ready to really, like you said, tighten the controls out there, make sure that the systems are hardened, and make sure they're not susceptible to any kind of attacks. And so they'll do those audits, and based on the results, they can make some changes. So I just wanted to throw that in. Go ahead, Eric, please.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And so, as I said, it's beneficial to any organization, whether your government or your business, because or private institution. It's very, very important, because sometimes investor, I think you make mention of that earlier, investor look at these things and say, okay, how often do you audit? What are your audit record? How well can you take care of this financial information before I do business with you? So they are there to be able to help your business to get credibility, into the process of getting new people invest into your business. They have to look at those records. So it's very important that audit is done. So it's not about, it's under a set period of time. For laws and regulations, in most cases, the government would tell you maybe audit, every 6 months, or do this every 3 months, whatever it is. Those you have to be compliant with. You have no choice to go around it, because failure to do that, you might have some kind of legal implication of doing that. But internally, it's just for your own business growth. It helps you a lot. At least you have some kind of transparency into your business, see how well you are doing. So it's a must, so to speak, if you want to develop or be very successful in what you are doing. It's a must, like at least to see how things are doing. In the security aspect of it, you have to do audit to make sure that your security, your system is secure. For example, if you putting a firewall in place on your network, you want to make sure those settings for that firewall actually are the same thing throughout. 6 months from now on, nobody change anything. So you got to go back to the records and audit for your own improvement and security.
Awesome. So we talk about audit. Let's talk about the audit process. Some people use the word audit, but some people don't understand the entire audit process. And so we're going to share a little diagram here. Hopefully I can see the diagram. Audit really have 4 primary parts. The planning phase, and take screenshots of it, please. The planning phase, and that planning phase is where you do your scoping, you do your entrance conference, you do your risk assessment, graduate background information, whether it be looking at previous audits, previous whatever's happening in the space, previous what's in the news, things like that. Anything around those things, but that will call the planning. Eric, please come in.
So yeah, I mean, the process of auditing is kind of, there's nothing fixed when it comes to technology. Most of these, some of them are industry based, so it depends on the industry that you are in. That's how your auditing process is going to be laid out. But in most cases, fundamentally, they have the scoping phase. I mean, hey, what is the audit going to cover? Are we going to, for example, we're going to audit the Ministry of Finance today in Liberia, but what is it going to cover? It's not going to cover like every computer in the building. It's not going to cover like every office space. It's not going to cover like every data that is in the ministry. But what is it going to cover? Is it going to cover maybe our banking transactions? Are going to cover this. So you got to tell the limit. So scoping just a limit, a perimeter that you're going to cover in your auditing, and then you plan how to execute that that audit through the planning process. And then, of course, after that, you can go and conduct the auditing. Like based on your scoping and your plan, you can go ahead and conduct the auditing. Of course, every audit has to have some kind of report. So you go and write the report and submit a report to your stakeholders. Again, that report, as I said from the beginning, auditing is not meant to to see who doing what. I mean, obviously there can be crime discovered during the audit process. That's a whole different thing. But the main purpose of audit here, the end game is to be able to, do an assessment to see how things are. Are they actually the way they're supposed to? Who in more in the key is we know that everybody should be doing XYZ. We want to make sure that XYZ is done or is not done. If it is not done, then we say, hey, this is not being done. Please do it next time, kind of thing. And then do a report. And after a report, you do another follow-up to make sure that those, report or recommendation are still being followed. So that's actually the process that we're going to follow in auditing. But it may vary based on the industry or the regulatory body that's doing the auditing.
Yeah, so if I may add there, so a little bit about the planning, a little more to add. Thank you, Eric, for that great discussion there. So a little bit of the planning. So in the planning, like I told you do your entrance, and Eric talked about scoping. So you can't audit the whole universe. So the management would decide, okay, we're going to audit, for 1 year. Say, taking Liberia case in point, they did a recent audit with CBL. They went from 2018 to current. So they decided to do 4 years for the scope. So part of the planning phase, you have to also set up a methodology. So how are you going to audit? Okay, we're going to look at this, that you have to have all these steps. In some instances, management have to approve it. Sometimes it's just, they just go because management trusts the team. Sometimes every step of the way has to be approved before you can move to the next step. So you have the methodology, and then you have the interest, like I talked about, the interest conference in planning phase, and then you have the notification where you will write, and I'm using CBL as the example. They write CBL and say, hey, CBL, we're going to audit you next month. This is what we're going to be looking at. Please give us a primary point of contact. We'll be available from this point. Please give us this document request. And then we go to the next phase, what Eric kind of touched on it too, is the testing phase. So the testing phase is what you're looking at systems, you're looking at documentations, you're looking at relevant laws, you're interviewing people that, are head of departments or people responsible for the different parts, systems that you're in. So you're having those discussions. And like Eric mentioned, then you write a report. And sometimes the report can go into many phases. You have the first draft, second draft, before you finally go, final report. And the stakeholder has to be part of that process. What are the draft report? They have to have the buy-in in it. And so when you draft those reports and send it to the stakeholder, that's when you have something we call management response. And so then you get your findings in there, if any, and they have to respond to say, okay, we accept the findings or the observation, or oh, no, this is not true. Like CBL is saying, no, some of these things they are saying, yeah, they're all lies. No, we got evidence here. You didn't ask for it. Here it is. And so that's that back and forth, the management response, and then the final report. And then if there's a final report, once we get to a final report, it get published. Most time with IT stuff, based on my career, they do not publish the report just for the risk. Not going to put all the vulnerability out there.
That's right.
Yeah, they don't. They're made to an executive summary, but there are key stakeholders that will have that information. But they're not going to throw all that to let the hackers know. Oh, guess what? Oh, we got some hole in our firewall here, and guess what? Oh, the scan report we did last night is showing this. They're not going to do that.
Yeah,
but
right.
The people that need to know, like Eric talking about, the need to know basis, they have that information. And then Eric talking about also there's that follow-up process, which is the last phase. So on those findings, and that's a lot of times people forget about that phase. And I see that even happening with all the audits happening in Liberia. They come up with these audits, they publicize it, they put it on Facebook, on their page, and whatever it is, and it stops there. Nobody follow up on the audits to make sure that the issues are being remediated, and to make sure that there's a responsible party that's handling that. Every audit finding should be assigned to an owner. An owner supposed to be responsible for that finding, and then you follow up, whether it be a 1 month, whatever the management response is. If they say we're going to remediate this in 6 months, in 3 months, or 1 month, you follow up on it and make sure it's remediated. If you don't follow up, some things will be open. In my career, I've seen other findings that have been open for 1.5 year, 2 years. They just open because there's nobody assigned to it. After the audit was done, they just pack it and put it down. And so it's important that there's somebody assigned to it. And the audit committee too, the audit team, there's somebody, whether it be the management, they're following up on those findings to make sure that they're remediated and to make sure that the auditors say they're doing what they said they will do.
Yeah.
Eric, you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, you said it all. So, I can't emphasize more on the intent of the audit because in third world country or developing country, they think when you hear the word audit, it means here they're coming for you or they're coming to get you or arrest you or whatever, or put you in
Right.
jail, or they come in discover your chopping spot, or what the term want to use it. So, but that's not the purpose of audit. But nevertheless, as you said, if you got to create transparency. That's why it's for, because people putting the money into your business or into the government, they do invest. For example, the U.S. government is sending billions of dollars to Liberia and say, okay, this is a free money, go ahead and use it to develop your country. And people spending the money, the time, and energy, they want to know how things are done. So it got to create that transparency. So, but if in the process, if you're going to do a report and start lying in your report, then of course it raises eyebrow and people are going to go into investigation. That's when you're going to turn that auditing now into investigation to see what exactly is happening. So look at audit to be something that will help, you, your country, help your business or your organization, and also help your stakeholder that are investing into your business. So it's a good thing, the audit, and it's necessary.
Awesome, awesome. So, as you all know, of this is Tech Talk. So, we want to talk about some common IT audits that you should do or you should know about. So, Eric, we already talked about auditing the infrastructure and auditing the system. We talk about firewall repeatedly, but we talk about business continuity audit. That's one of them, to make sure that you have some redundancy when your system go down. We saw that with what is it, telecom, the last time. If they were auditing a system, they would have known, they would have had some disaster recovery plan in place and all of that. So that's one thing. We talked about compliance audit already. I think Eric talked about a lot more security audits. I mean, we can stress that enough. Security audit to make sure we're not vulnerable to cyber attacks. Eric, add to it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think that is the key, and that is the key that we'll be talking about here. And as I said, the key we're trying to show here to our viewers and to the country and businesses in Liberia is that we have to incorporate technology into what we're doing right now. Liberia, so to speak, I have not been there, so I can't say it, but I want to believe we are way, way above when it comes to implementing technology on how we function as a country, or as a government, or our businesses. So it's very important that we consider the security of that. So in order for you to be able to have effective auditing, whether it's through IT or whatever, or what kind of audit you're doing, the infrastructure has to be in place. For example, if you're going to do, like Telvi said, if you're going to do a scope of maybe 4 years of a period, like from this to this time, 4 year period of auditing, that's a lot of data you're going to audit. That's way a lot. So I'm surprised to see that they have that scope. It's so long. I was surprised when you said it. It's a very long scope. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to need technology to help you to do that auditing, because you cannot sit, go through papers and go to the drawer and flipping paper to see who does what. No, there has to be some kind of implementation of technology, and there's a lot of advancement in technology that will help us do kind of auditing. So IT auditing is very critical because we want to make sure we preserve, as I said from the beginning, the confidentiality of our data, the integrity of our data and the availability. If we fail to do those things, periodic audit to make sure that those holes are closed or those ports are closed, then of course we will pay a lot more price for that when hackers get it before we do. So that's why the IT audit is very important, because you want to be at the head of the bad guys to see your flaw and have that covered up before the bad guy can go and and find those areas and try to exploit those areas.
Awesome, awesome. So just to add to a more common IT audits, we talk. Another common IT audit that I've done in the past is the data privacy audit to make sure that the data is protected at all times. So that's one common one. Another one I've done in the past, change management audit. So all those system changes we're putting through, want to make sure that they're going through the proper process, proper documentation process. They're approved by the change board. They're approved by management. They have the right justification and everything. And also system lifecycle audit to make sure that when those changes go through, or when those applications that they're going through the full circle, and we make sure we have enough controls around them. So just to name a few. Anything else, Eric?
No, that's it. I mean, I think we talk about that. The privacy is a very big deal. As I said, GDPR, hip hop, and what a lot of different governing body in the U.S. that want to make sure that people are safe. Especially when it comes to hip hop and GDPR, is very important. So they are very strong on those. Failure failure to do those failure to do those things will hurt your business, will hurt your government, will hurt your organization. So it's very important that these things are not taken lightly. And the difference that I see with some third world country or Liberia and other things is that maybe those governing bodies are not in place. Those institutions that's supposed to put those standards in place or auditing in place, or that goes, hey, you are required to audit as XYZ time. Those are not in place. So people, they don't even bother auditing, and there's no urgency to audit. There's no requirement to audit. So they don't see that. So I think maybe we'll go back before the show is over. Maybe we'll discuss how that can affect Liberia, so to speak.
Mhm.
But that is the main thing that we're kind of pushing here, because if you don't have, this thing in play, it'd be very hard to, to actually execute, a very effective audit.
That leads us to our next topic, talk about common IT audit and missteps. That could be a misstep too.
Yeah, for
Not
sure.
having effective systems. Can't rely on the system.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the steps. I mean, you just went straight into it.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about, some of the missteps. The first one that comes to mind is just not planning right. Not planning right. If you don't plan your audit right, it's a big problem. Everything starts from planning.
Yeah.
You end up having scope creep. I'm not sure. Some people have heard about scope creep. Like Eric talked about the 4 years. The universe is so wide. 4 years, that's
Yeah.
a lot. I don't think you have system or methodology in place to do all this, but more power to you. But I don't think you just even have the bandwidth to audit for 4 years,
Yeah.
and that we can really rely on your output. But as far as not planning well, but if you don't plan well, then your testing would just be a mess.
Yeah.
And then come to reporting. I mean, everything just run because you have to allocate your resources properly. So it's important that you get your planning right. The bulk of the work is in planning phase. That's
Yeah.
the highest percentage of the audit process, the planning.
Yeah.
So that's one misstep that I've seen. Also, poor communication. Poor communication, whether from the lead, whether from management, or from between you and the client, or whatever internal client, external client. That's another issue that I've seen, another misstep. Also, not getting management buy-in. You can't go forward without getting management buy-in. It's important that management is part of the whole process. They're informed, they approve the process from beginning to end. But Eric, add to it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, there can be a lot of missteps when it comes to auditing or doing auditing, but they generically the overall things that we kind of focus on is, as I said, every success of any organization or business or government, or failure thereof, it depends on three things: the people in the process and the technology that involved into the process of doing whatever you're doing, whether it's auditing or any kind of IT or anything that you're doing, for example. if you either have the people to do the work and have in the process is put in place on how to do that work, and maybe the technology to do that work. For example, let's say, let me make it very practical for our viewers. Let's say in Liberia, back when I was there, people brush farm. Okay, Chavi, and I was old enough to see my my grandma, my grandparent, they're brushing farm. They take that single collar to go to the bush, and they cut it, the bush. It will take about 3 months to get all the, cut the bush, burn the thing, and then clean the place and plant the rice. That's a process, but it's not an effective process. So you have the people there to do the work. They are willing to do it, but the process is very tedious. So that's going to affect the return. And also the technology that involved using the color to brush a farm is tough. So if you're doing like a process, or an investigation on how to improve the process, those are things you can look at the people that are involved. Do they have the adequate knowledge to do the work that I say they're going to do? If yes, if why is this not happening? Is that a process? Then go ahead and fix the process. And then if not, if the process is working fine and it's still there's no return, maybe instead of using the colors, try to invest into some yellow machine so that they can be able to clean the farm very quickly,
Yeah.
and they will still can have rice on the market as quickly as possible. So those can be a misstep in the process if people are not trained enough, or they don't have the adequate technology, or they don't have the process in place. Like for example, 4 years of auditing or scoping, it's too big. But do you have the people, the knowledge
Yeah.
that many people do the work, or do you have the technology in place? There are some processes or computer, or some software that will do billions of processes, a million or so, just to go through all the financial records and see errors and report the errors. But to go individually through every page and manually, it's just not an effective process in doing that. So I'll just categorize those misstep into people, process, or technology kind of thing. So that's the overview.
Yeah, you said it right, Eric. This at the staff training off. It takes a special kind of person to be an auditor. Anybody can just get up be an auditor. Otherwise, they will miss certain things. You have to be very keen to detail. They will miss things. They will miss obvious things. And so, at the staff training, are they continuously trained on the audit and what's training in the audit space? Another thing you talk about, I'm glad you said that, is the process, that manual process. A lot of, when I think about Liberia, they don't have the auditing software like that. The government really don't have that. So they're using Excel, spreadsheets, or Notepad. Can you imagine? And still using hard copies or documents. So you're
Yeah.
auditing for 4 years. Can you imagine? Can you process just manually how much document you got to flip through
Yeah, I
to
don't know how
really
to
go
do that.
4 years?
I don't learn reading too much. Tell us, so if I'm an
No.
auditor, there's no way I'm going to read 4 years of document to
There
find.
is no way I can even order even for even more than a year if I can read. There's no way.
Yes, sir.
Like most 2 years, 4 years in Liberia, what the tools, what the process is really to go 4 years, really?
Yeah.
And you're not sampling, you're doing detailed audit, really? But more power to them. But just the common missteps there, like we mentioned, and also a failure to follow up. They get
Yeah.
these findings, they run all around Facebook with it, they post it on website, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
It sits there for the next government again,
Yeah.
and so that's another misstep. But we'll move to the next one. We'll talk about some common IT audit frameworks. And Eric, you already talked about GLBA, but I want to also reference some of the frameworks that I've used in the past or that come onto the space. Like some people have heard about PCI DSS.
Yeah.
That's for another framework we use for when I used to be in audit assistant. We use that. I'm really not in audit anymore. But yes, used for credit card audit. So that's a standard or framework we use. NIST for sure. That's almost like the Bible, kind of.
Yeah.
NIST. So we use that. And another one, I think on the ISO 2701.
Yeah.
That's another one that we use. Eric, I'll let you come in.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there are a lot of governing bodies, especially in the developed world, that are put in place to make sure that people are safe or data are safe. Just they are paying attention. For example, the PCI DSS. Those are financial institution governing body. They want to make sure that your financial information are actually safe. If somebody goes to the store to swap their credit card, they want to make sure that person data is safe. So if you are a bank who keeping people money, or you want to make sure that you have a process to follow. So the government is very curious to know that how the information have been used or have been utilized, have been consumed. So, in the absence of this governing body, people do anything they want.
Mhm.
They can take your even they can take your bank account number and just forget and leave it
Right.
on the desk and go home and come back the next time. So there are processes put in place by the governing body, so that people can follow up. So in order for you to be compliant, you have to follow this framework, individually. If you are engaged into any of these things, for example, they have the EPA for environmental protection kind of thing. So those are all framework we got to follow. Those are
Mhm.
all
Mhm.
regulatory body. The OSHA, like web organization and safety organization that monitor how employees are safe at work. All those things. Those are things that are put in place that people have to follow. So the framework are necessary, because if they are not in place, private institutions are not going to, they're not going to care about what they do about with our data, or with whatever we're talking about here. For example, I talk about the GDPR, or the British privacy, uh, you know, organization that enforcing, any EU, customer data that has been you will follow. If they can fine you as far as $20 million, on just the first offense, or even more than that. So if you're running a business and you take it, you have the British EU, or you know citizen data on your computer, and you'll be fined $20 million, for maybe some time. That's a lot of money to use. So you're going to do all you can to make sure
Right.
that that particular data is saved and is well kept. So all those regulatory bodies, they are there, put in place in order for people to be able to follow them, to speak on behalf of the people, the citizen, or the user of your services, like a bank.
Yeah, yeah, and not forgetting your own state laws, rules, and regulations. So
Yeah,
there are some states that, like you talk about banking, you have to be compliant. Like for example, in the state of Texas, they have the Texas banking something something instead of Texas banking something. So we have to be compliant. Make sure our systems are protected against ransomware and stuff like that. So we
yeah,
have to do annual assessment or ransomware and send those attestation. Make sure that we have inadequate controls and our cyber posture is intact.
yeah,
So that's another thing. And then your own internal policies. Don't forget about that. Your own policies, your standards, and things like that.
yeah,
Those are built around this very same framework to make sure
yeah.
that you're doing well as far as your systems and whatever else you have in place.
Yeah, yeah. I think you have something on the screen. For example, like the SAC got SAC 1 and
The
SAC
SOC
2.
report, yeah, SOC
Yeah,
1,
yeah.
SOC 2.
So those are also put in place. For example, SAC 1 is for the financial institutions. So they
Mhm.
make sure that they actually have a process to follow. They have a commitment. They have documentation of on how to handle financial record. Because, for example, if or somebody want to open your bank, or bank, or let's say a business want to invest into a bank, or do some kind of business with the bank, they want to look at those reports to make sure that they are actually following, or they are up to date, or they are compliant with, before they can go ahead and do their investment. Because if they don't, they're running a risk of being incompliant and losing the investment. And SAC 2
Mhm.
report, I think, is about controls, about
Yeah,
security controls.
controls, yeah, security
So
controls and data controls. Yeah.
exactly. So if you let's say a IT company, or business that have IT infrastructure, you have to be SAC 2 or compliant. You want to make sure that your security that you put in place, they are actually, you know very good controls in the sense that who have access to what, and who controls what, and who modify what. So if those things are put into place, then of course the government is pleased, because if they don't, if the government just sit back, okay, go out and do what you want to do, there can be a cyber attack. Like it will not just happen. They are happening very frequently these days. You know what I mean? They make little mistake. The bad guys go there. They do what they can do, and that's also made disrupt the government, and it's a national security issue. So that's why the government kind of involved into this kind of thing to make sure that you follow all these standards and regulations to make sure that every system is kind of protected.
Mm-hmm. And even though you're doing all of that, we know that there's no 100% foul-proof system, but at
No,
least
no, no.
you're secure to a reasonable extent. You
Yeah.
know,
Now you are
nobody will
secure.
pay for ransomware. I mean, pay ransom around here. It's expensive. It is very frustrating. And now your annual bonus you'll be giving away, so because when you not pay all the ransom, then you're getting your bonus. So
Yes. Yeah, it is very important. It is very important to do that, because it's mandatory that we follow all these things. So it's sad that we are not looking into that direction, as at all, as a country, to say, okay, let's even start doing this thing or thinking about them, because at some point in time, I don't know, we'll have time to talk about it, but at some point in time, we're going to be left behind, that nobody wants to do business with you as a country,
right.
because your whole system is not even compliant with the international
Yeah, there's no
monetary system.
reliance. Can't
So
trust the system. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. So we've been talking a lot about auditing, and I'm sure some people have interest in the wondering, what certifications can I take to be an auditor? I love the career. I love to be there. So we're going to talk about, common IT audit certification. And these are industry standard certification. We have the CISA, which is the Certified Information System Auditor. I have that too. I've been having that a long time in my career, probably 5 or 7 years ago. It's a good cert. Even if you're going to go to cybersecurity, whatever it is, it's really good. It requires about 5 years of experience, related experience. But if you have related experience, go for it. There's some related certification that do not have that high standard of 5 years or something. You can look into that. Another one is the CRISC, which is the Certified Information something. You don't quote me. Information Security something controls or something like that. But CRISC, CRISC, whatever. But it's CRISC. It's by SACA. That's a good one too. You're looking at the risk. It doesn't matter what industry. That's what I like about these certification. You don't, whether you like to work in a hospital is still useful. If you like to work in, what it is in, what I would say, health, something else. What can I say? If you like to work in banking, it's still useful. If you like to work in mining, it's useful. So that's two I can think about. CISP is another one. The Certified Information. That's a beast. Let me just tell you, CISP is a beast. The reason I know that anybody that passed CISP will tell you CISP is a beast. I took it before. I think I took it about a year or two ago during the COVID. I missed it, but it's a beast. It's not for the faint of heart. It is a beast. But Eric needs some.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am not. You are pretty, pretty well learned when it comes to auditing and compliance. So I'm not quite. I don't know a lot. Maybe I know just GRC, governance risks and compliance. Compliance. GRC I think is the basic one. It's just to make sure that these companies are actually compliant. They send you out there to run a software, and they can tell you whether or not this company system meet compliant or not, and you just read a report. But yeah, I think that's as far as certificate. I'm not too versed when it comes to auditing change.
Another one, because I've been in that space for a long time too, so I kind of know a lot of them.
Yeah,
another one is the certified internal auditor. So if you're an internal auditor or you like to go into internal audits, that one you can get it to. I've forgotten the requirements. It's a 3-part exam. It used to be a 3-part exam. You can get into it. Another one is the Certified Information Systems Manager, SISM, the SISM. That one, I am very aware of that. I'm actually preparing for that one. But it requires a lot of experience. If you're already experienced in this, in the space, and you want to go into management or higher level, then it's
Yeah.
a good cert, to look colorful in your resume. But I can't stress enough, even though you're going to have all of these, audit certification, but we can't talk about all of them without talking about cloud. It is important now with the direction of the world that you have some sort of cloud certification, even if it's just the baseline. If you're just going to get an AWS, associate or AWS professional, whatever, just the baseline. So you understand what happened in the cloud space, how the cloud operates, what's stored there, how it is, everything. You don't even have to be an expert. You don't have to be a cloud engineer, but just baseline. It's important that I would encourage it. Not I can't stress enough to secure our Comcast Security Plus. It's a must have. It's a
Yeah.
must have. It's a must have if you want to go into technology, cyber security, or whatever it is. It's like a must have. I kid you not. It's a must have. But
Yeah.
Eric, please add.
Yeah. I mean, if I certificate, it's a there's a lot out there you can start with. There are some basic entry level certificate that you can pursue. There are some harder one you can pursue, but it's just a matter of your knowledge. So just do a little research. I would your advice, do a research and see, where you can start. But those are, a lot of them out there that you can use, to put your foot through the door, to
Mhm,
be,
mhm.
to be in the field.
Yeah, like you said too, do your research because what direction you want to go in. If you want
Yeah.
to, if you like risk, you take C risk.
Yeah.
If you want to, go on the other side, if you like ball management, then you go be a pen tester, go in that direction. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
spin is a green field. It's a
That's right.
green field. So do your research. Don't take us as law and gospel. Do your research
Oh no, I don't do
and
that.
then go in the direction
Yeah.
because we're pursuing the direction that we want to go in. So you go in the direction that you like to do. Really like to. The
Yeah.
field is ready. It's a really a great field.
Yeah.
So talking about fraud management, let's talk about case study. And Erica, I'll let you open with this one.
Vulnerability assessment. Yeah. I think in relation to auditing, vulnerability assessment is a whole different ball game when it comes to auditing. There's a little bit part of it because the auditor is not going to go into detail to do an assessment to see how vulnerable the company or the business is, but it plays a very important role in whether or not you are compliant. So if the more vulnerable you are, the likely that you'll be out of compliance. So vulnerability assessment in a nutshell is, I mean, it doesn't have to be IT. It can be in a field, but in the IT field is the they run a program or software, that would tell this that are doing assessment of the system, all the computer system, the network system, to do an assessment to make sure that the company is not vulnerable. There's not a way that a hacker can get into the company system very easily. If it finds that particular vulnerability, then they make a recommendation on how to fix that particular vulnerability before the hackers go ahead and get it. So it's not like it's different from pen testing or penetration testing. It's just looking in your system to see if the windows are closed, for example, in your house and your neighborhood is not that safe. Before you go to bed every night, you want to make sure that you check the door, you check the front door, you check the window, your kids are in, or your dogs or cat, everything is in the house before you call it a night. That's a vulnerability assessment that you're doing, making sure that that all those things are in place to make sure that if you go to bed, so that somebody can come through your window and enter the house. So that's the whole scope of vulnerability assessment, done in an IT environment. And auditing can also be a little reference, not into detail, as I said. If you can be an IT auditor, then of course you can look into the vulnerability, make sure that these companies are not actually vulnerable to hacking or to any kind of malware or whatever the situation is. So that's the scope. That's a general overview of what vulnerability assessment is, to help the company or the business or whatever institution to look into their systems and make sure that you know it can be external as well too. It can be internal assessment. So make sure that your system is actually where not well protected, but at least you don't have a loophole that can be compromised by in hackers or bad guys.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Speaking about protecting your system, when we talk about vulnerability assessment, if I may add to what Eric was saying, there are different. Another way you can do is when they're doing these vulnerability assessment, they run some scans. Use some agents, software that they use to do the vulnerability scans, and some of the popular ones are the ones that I've used in the past. They use Tenable, they'll use Nessus, they will use Burp Suite, and Nmap. I think I've used Nmap before, but systems like that. So we'll run the scans, and then it will come up with these reports. And so most organizations, depend what's going on, management decision, they will run those scans, whether it be a weekly, whether it be a monthly, they have schedule for those scans. And then on those reports, the reports will tell you what's out there, what they've patched, and and stuff like that. But I just wanted to, so it's important. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, they have a lot of programs, a lot of software that can do that. That can make your job, your work. I mean, your low workload easier to do those searches. You can't go from one computer to another to check for vulnerability. You can't do that. It's a time consuming thing. That's what we're talking about. Technology that involved into that. So that system, the agent, you can deploy the agent on the computer, and the agent will do an assessment of that computer. Then it reports back to the base to say, hey, this computer is out of compliance, or somebody didn't change your password for 3 months. So, you got to check that person out, or somebody maybe didn't turn the computer down, or whatever the situation is. So the technology help a lot to do the assessment. So there are a lot of programs out there that can do an assessment for you. Some of them, they are agent based. That means they can install a program on your computer that can report back. And so some are cloud based. They just run a scan on a system. But the downside is that system has to be up. What the scan is going on. But there are a lot of ways to do these things. And referencing back to auditing in as far as Liberia, those are the kind of thing we're talking about. You try to implement, because if you're doing this thing, regular weekly vulnerability assessment or running tests, all the things, if you're ready to do audit, it make your work easier. You already have the data at hand, to perform these things. So that's why we actually advocating for the government, the country, to look into the technology in every aspect of what you do now. It has to be some kind of technology involved to help, make your life easier, for the generation to come.
Awesome. We can't talk about audit and not talk about AI and machine learning and how it enhances IT audit. So we want to touch upon it. And Eric will tell us some other ways that AI and machine learning helping us.
Yeah, I mean, AI make everything easy, and well, got a downside and upside, but
Right.
in most cases, it helps. It simplifies things. It makes things very easy. It can do data analytics. For example, tools that just all they do is just run those tools to analyze company data all day. Okay, how much money we got this year? How much money we got last week? Whatever. You just compile the data, analyze it, and then it compiles a report that's already sitting there waiting for you to just go and look through it, and then maybe just forward that to your stakeholder or your CEO or whatever, to kind of look at. So those things like automation automatically, run those tools for you to give you a report, machine learning, and stuff like that. Those are all good advancements that help us, to automatically do these things. But again, if we are not prepared, we don't have infrastructure in place, there's no way we can dream of these things happening to us as a country. So we have to get started before we can, benefit from this kind of technology.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right. AI, as from an audit standpoint, AI will do all the heavy lifting. So they will do all the work. All you have to do is really review the output, and it takes a lot of heavy lifting from the audit process, because the system is doing all of that for you. But the downside there is your auditors have to be trained in data analytics, to be trained in how to review those reports and what to look up. But it saves a lot of time, especially from sampling and all those different things. You can use that time, to write your report and do some other analysis. Because the AI will do most of it. And also, for a machine learning standpoint, if you're looking for reviewing a data set and looking for improprieties or looking for fraud and stuff like that, they'll do it for you. So you just have to review the report. It takes all that heavy lifting, a lot of time, a lot of wasted resources. So a lot of audits are going to that direction. Yeah, it's evolving, but they're already making use of AI. Already making use of, because that's the direction. So anything else, Eric? I think that's all. But I think we already talked about the latest trend in the audit space already. Technology, of course. The AI, machine learning, the cloud. Uh, that's it. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it. Those
Yeah.
are the big ticket items.
Yeah.
Anything else, Eric?
Well, I think that's it. I think we talk about risk, in the audit process. I think the thing the auditor or the governing body looking at, they want to make sure that we are not at risk of losing anything. We are not at risk of losing our data. So how do you know when you so the goal there, they look for threats. You know, they look for vulnerability that we already talked about. Risk, I think, is equal to threat multiplied by the vulnerability. Threat times vulnerability equal to risk. So, in other words, in order for you to, in order for something to be risky, you have to have threats. You have to have a vulnerability. For example, let's say you want to take your mattress and and go lay down in the street, tell maybe in taxi on the highway. You want to take you want to take a nap. You want to take a mattress on
Right.
the highway and go lay down on the highway. There is a threat. The threat is that the cars are coming. They're going to hit you. You know, So you are kind of vulnerable because the frequency of the cars coming are very frequently. It's gonna be bad for you. But you can also take that same mattress and go in an environment that you only see your car once a week. Car doesn't travel on a road once a week, so it's not a risk to take your mattress to go and lay down on a particular road because there's no threat. The threats are not, you're not vulnerable to anything because the car is not going to come until maybe past 2 months. The president, we are said the plane, the airplane doesn't fly in this direction for
For a
once a
long
year.
time.
So there has to be, for you to get risk, in order for something to be risky, there has to be a threat, and you have to be vulnerable to that threat. So that's why the auditing process, they kind of look into this kind of thing. Is there any threat, in this company, and how vulnerable is the company when the threat acts upon the vulnerability? So just to kind of point that out.
Yeah, to add to the latest trends, everybody know, cybersecurity is the direction of the world. And so now with, you know, as cybersecurity is growing, the hackers, they're getting better at their game. And so that's one of the latest trends. And then too, data privacy is a big thing with all these technology and AI and everything else. So more stringent laws, more regulations around data privacy, and things like that. So more of that. Those are trending items in addition to, cloud and monitoring and all of that. But we've talked about all auditing and everything else, but I wanted us to talk about um, the CBL report. It came out this week. We're not going to go into the whole report, but we'll talk about a section that has to do with IT or our area. And so we want to talk about one or two of the findings that were in there, and just opine on it. So let me see if I can find that.
I'm not too familiar with the report, so I'll go through it with you.
Yeah, just a little bit of it because the report was too long. And another thing too, these people they make the report. Let me take this off the screen. I mean, the audit reports are so long and so exhausting. It makes it hard for you to read. Just a lot of words and a lot of information in there. Like, you're right, too much. Yeah, nobody really plenty audit
Well,
report
that's the
anymore.
point, though. They want you to read it. They know we can't read too much.
Yeah, because they know we're not reading. Nobody really plenty audit report anyway. They
Yeah,
write too
so
much.
that's the point, you know.
Audit reports should really be concise, but not taking the substance out of it, but really concise and whatever
Yeah,
it is. They write all these plenty things,
yeah.
but regardless, let's talk
So
about
maybe,
one that's in our neck of the woods. So one on human resource management system. They said there was no evidence of approval of 40 staff contracts before the commencement of the official duties. And I'm just going to summarize this. Management did not maintain personal records in some personal files, such as letter application, employment letters, contracts, police clearance, blah, blah, blah. Management withheld 1 million as withholding taxes from staff without evidence of subsequent remittance to LRA. There's no evidence of remittance of employee contribution to NASCAR. And I think, Eric, you already touched on this before. So, I mean, it boils around systems. I mean,
yeah,
if you don't have adequate controls and you don't have adequate systems, you have these kind of gaps.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. I agree. I mean, I don't know. I mean, easy for me to come say I'm an auditor and I say I didn't find any evidence. There's no evidence of this. How how did I arrive at my conclusion? What are the tools that I use? For example, if you go to court in the US here, if I'm hired as a cybersecurity professional to go testify in court to say, okay, I don't think the hacker actually get into the system. And I'm not just gonna sit there and say I have to prove it. I say this is what I use, this is what I use, this is what I use, this is a system, this is a firewall. There's no connection between. I have to prove that through technology. Instead of me running the report, say okay, there's no evidence of this, there's no evidence of this. Now, if the other side have a professional who wants to go through that process to make sure that whatever you say is true, they can counter your findings and try to debunk it and see what happens. So I don't know based on what they're putting all the findings out there, how credible they are, but it's in order for to have very efficient auditing, these things we have to incorporate technology. As you said, a lot of words in the report, it just overwhelming. In most cases, your boss will tell you, say, hey, I mean, go rewrite a report. I don't have
Of
time to read that
course,
thing.
that's what I report back. Like, go
You know what I
summarize
mean?
that thing.
I
Go.
don't have time to read that thing.
I'm not just doing that.
I want few sentences. I want to say
You
what
see,
happened
they
in few
put some
sentences.
diagrams in there,
You know, yeah. So
a lot of words.
hopefully they went into detail on how they arrive at their findings, or what are the tool they use, or you know to get their
No,
information.
they didn't go much into it. They didn't go that deep into it. But
Yeah,
I want
but
to bring another one. So it's the same thing, you know, whatever contract to family, business tooling, 210,000 for maintenance of the bank, no evidence of a competitive bidding, no evidence of work performed, no evidence of okay, I read that one. Payment made upfront via transfer, no business registration or tax clearance, no evidence of withholding or remittance of taxes. Contract value doubled from 105 in 2021 to 210 in 2023 without evidence of change in scope of work. Now, if he has systems in place, you will find evidence for all of those because those systems will be talking to each other.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's my point. It's
It's a
just
heavy
how to kind of,
manual process.
yeah, it how to speak to that, because as I say, you don't, I don't know what they use, what tools they use, or what the situation is. But to just say no evidence of that and just walk away as a flying color, it just will not fly in your developed world. It have to be backed by data. We say no evidence. It has to be no evidence, because they can say go back to those systems and forensically, investigate those systems and see whether or not there are actually evidence. Are you saying no evidence because you don't have a tool to do the investigation, or you don't have the technology to make you see if there's evidence or not. Because, for example, somebody can say, "Hey, I did not take that picture on my phone, or I didn't delete anything. I didn't see any email from that man. That man lying on me." You can say all you want, but if you bring an investigator who forensically inclined through IT technology, he can tell you, say, "No, happened on July 27th for 8 a.m. You know, 47 seconds. You tested a particular picture from your phone, and this is what happened to it." But you bring an average person who say, "I mean, you are in proof that man did it," but he doesn't know. So
Right.
knowledge, as I said again, knowledge, people, process, and technology. So you have to have people who are knowledgeable in order to find those things that you are looking for. Without the knowledge, they will say, "Hey, no evidence of XYZ." And then of course, poor man in the street who doing business, who selling, Gary to get by for the day, do have the ability to, look into that to disprove you, to say, okay, they may lie and there's evidence. Because you are the boss, no evidence, maybe they can follow you. But again, it all boils down to technology and how we can utilize technology to help us to. And the key thing is, I want to emphasize, is not only those things, it's the willingness to use the technology. But
Mm-hmm.
Chevy, as you always say that throughout the show, you have to have management involved into the system. There's nothing done without management involved, or there's no policy to kind of back up, what you're doing. In this case, there's nothing going to happen effectively without the government or the president of the country wanting those things to happen. Let's say, for example, the Minister of Finance does not want audit to go on. He can do all he can to stop the audit or to derail it. Or if the president say, "I didn't answer for date in 24 hours," I bet you it's gonna come in 24 hours. They will
Right.
find it out. So involvement of leadership is a very big deal when it comes to getting these things done, so that one person or people are not feeling they are being targeted. If they feel they are being targeted, they will find a way to you know dodge the bullet and just do all they can to stop the process from going on.
Awesome, awesome. So we have a temporary number because our host Lofa is not here today, but we have a temporary number. If you'd like to call this number. We'd love to hear from you. What a comment,
Maybe if I
criticism.
can call, I seen just joined the broadcast.
Oh yeah, so he can call and contribute. I know Lofa. We'll talk about it at the end, but Lofa will not also touch on something. The police booth will touch that, but Lofa is not here, so he doesn't have the other line. But use this number, call, and we'll answer, and we'll have you live and answer your questions or comments or feedback, whatever you want to call it. So we'll keep the line open while we wrap up things here. So Eric, Lofa wanted us to talk about that police book briefly, so I'll let you go into it. I think you want to go into it, talk about his recommendation.
Police boot. I have limited knowledge of that. Maybe
Okay, so I can just talk a little bit on that. I have limited knowledge. We just go on with pictures that we saw that the boot were either stolen or taken away, whatever the language is. And so, from a tech perspective, we're recommending a few things. We're recommending, instead of having that, whatever the boot, because if it was built like this, let me add this to the stage. If it was built and mounted in the ground, somebody wouldn't take it away. Even if the policeman was sleeping, let me speak like English. Somebody won't take it away because it's mounted in the ground.
Yeah.
And then there's a picture here that Lofa went in his neighborhood to show to you. So you better give Lofa some kudos here.
Yeah.
For a solar panel.
The copyright protection from Lofa Julius.
Yeah, for Lofa, copyright straight. Do not air picture y'all straight from Lofa, straight from his neighborhood. He went to purposely to show it to y'all.
Yeah.
So you have a solar panel that with your cameras. And Eric talking about solar panel. Most of my solar panels around my house, most of my cameras, they use solar panel.
Yeah.
So that's the direction now. Almost all of my solar panels, I can talk. All of my cameras use solar panels. Yeah. And so, use the solar panel ones, especially for Liberia. We got the sun there. you
Yeah.
know, and mount it in the ground. Who gonna root it? They're gonna root out the thing from the ground,
They
but
can't. They can't.
it will eliminate some of the risk that we have to deal with now and in the future.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know.
and all that we're saying here, tell me, if we look at it logically, all that we've been saying throughout the whole tech talk is improvement. It's a willingness to make a change. It's not going to happen at once. For example, today the boot is gone. What next? How
Right.
can we do? What can we put in place to make that boot does not disappear anymore? I mean,
Mhm.
what next can we do? That's all going to improve. So if that you put the booth there and somebody took it away, okay, are we going to start putting it there? What are you going to do? Maybe you make a concrete, or go by look for recommendation. Get that camera there. People process the technology. If one doesn't work, do find different method. How to
Mhm.
improve things. If
Mhm.
we go follow that process, most of the things in our country are going to work. For example, somebody want to travel to out of the country and want a passport, and they drove in time. Let's say they go to Central Monrovia. What about the office here? I don't know. I haven't been there for a long time. So they drive there at 6 a.m. in the morning, and they stood on the line for maybe 18 hours before they even got their passport given to them, or maybe an entire week or so. It's a failure. So what can we do to improve that particular process? Do we need technology? Do we need people? Or do we need to kind of look at the process to make sure that it doesn't happen again? So, but the appetite to do this thing has to be there. If it's not there, and maybe they're going to rebuild that boot the same way, and they're going to come and take it
We
again.
build this team with, and we're talking about somebody taking it away, but how about the risk where somebody, a truck or something, could just run into that booth because
Yeah, I
it
know.
doesn't have guardrails in, to really fire, fireproof or whatever proof
Or
that somebody can run
protect
into
the
that
police.
booth and
Maybe
just
the
crush
policeman
the
ran
whole.
away when saw the people coming because he had no protection.
Right, right. It's terrible.
If I'm a
It's
policeman,
terrible.
people coming to me, I'm running away.
Of
That's
course, fit had a body, one life, right? Yeah, but we'll find out the story, the details later. But at little we know, at minimum, we know the booth is gone. Let's just say that how it went. We'll deal with all of that details. When the government issue a press statement, but the booth is gone. Some things can be avoided, and we're looking at process improvement.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. But let's recap here while we open the line. I mean, the lines will be open for probably 2-3 minutes. I'm not sure somebody's going to call, but if nobody's going to call, let's recap at the before we take a call, if any. Do you want to summarize for us?
Well, I mean, as you said from the beginning, the entire scope of the show is to kind of point out areas of improvement by implementing technology into our system as a country, as institution in Liberia. So auditing is one of our topics we talk about today, and auditing play a key role on how we can improve our system by going to do an assessment, and then we can improve, on our assessment, on our findings. So auditing is one of the ways that we can do those things. We talk about different type of audit. We talk about the audit framework, the processes, procedures, and so many things. Maybe Tabby can, you know,
Yeah. Like you mentioned, we talk about the audit process. The audit typically have 4 processes. So the planning phase, or the field work or testing phase, whatever you want to call it, and then we have the reporting phase where you write your audit report, and then the follow up phase. Most times, sometimes it will merge the follow up phase in the in the reporting or whatever it is. But typically, you see 3 or 4 processes. Then we talk about certifications, the different certifications. We talk about missteps in auditing. We talk about also what's trending in the industry. We talk about, you already mentioned the frameworks. We talk about best practices. We talk about some of the common IT audits that we see out there. And we went to vault management. Vault management typically have 4 processes. You have the planning, the scanning, reporting, and I think it's like a follow-up phase 2, something like that. But pretty much that's it. We encourage you to share the show, and give us your feedback. We're doing this because we love technology. We love to give back. And so the only way we can get better is through your feedback. So we ask you to let us know. You can reach out to Lofar, to Eric, to Nelson, myself and let us know how we can be better and how we can serve you better. Eric, I'll let you wrap up, and
Yeah,
then
I think
we'll.
that's it. Thank you so much, Tel, for your input on this. It's a very detailed explanation on why we think audit. Again, we try our best to sorry for the background noise. We try our best to bring out this kind of topic to kind of shine light on where we think we can improve as people. Especially as a country. It's all about what we want to go back to. As IT professionals, for example, if I want to retire and go back to Liberia to work, I want to work. You know what I mean? But I want to make sure that infrastructure is there so that I can be able to, do the work that I want to do or to help the country. Because there's no way I can help, or DOFA can help, or TEL can help when infrastructure is not built for the environment. So that's what we're advocating here for, so that we can be able to help. So it's a nice show. Next time we have another show, we're gonna have more people. So far, hopefully Nelson's gonna be here, and then Tyler's gonna be here. So thanks for hanging out with us. And I think that's it. Have a great day.
Yeah, enjoy your week, and thanks for hanging out with us.